action were produced, including the 1876, 1886, 1892 and 1894 models, each improving the design and increasing the caliber and accuracy. In 1871, the Martini Henry rifle was adopted by the British military. It was the first rifle designed from the ground up as a single-shot cartridge breech loader. It had a hinged block that would drop to expose the breech. It was actuated with a lever action that also cocked the internal firing pin. Several variants were also manufactured, particularly in the barrel rifling system and ammunition caliber. After the American Civil War, the US Army was left with a large quantity of muzzle-loading arms, particularly the Springfield 1863. To save costs, these were modified into breech-loading cartridge weapons, the Springfield Model 1873 trapdoor carbine. In 1884, the German army was the first major power to equip its foot soldiers with a magazine-fed rifle. They had modified their stockpile of 1871 Mausers into an 8-shot tubular magazine rifle. The bolt action was seen by most as the future of military firearms, and 3 distinct types of bolt action developed around the same time. Although there are other variants and modifications, the 3 principal types were the Mauser, the Lee-Enfield, and the Mosin-Nagant. The Mauser is the most common type of bolt action and was introduced in the German Gewehr in 1898. Its main difference is the mechanism is cocked on opening the breech, and it has 3 locking lugs. This system was also utilized in the American M193 Springfield, the Japanese Arisaka Type 38 and 99 rifles, and the M1917 Enfield. The Lee-Enfield, or originally Lee-Metford design, was introduced in 1888 with the Lee-Metford magazine rifle Mark I. This bolt has the difference of cocking on closing, allowing for a faster rate of fire, and a separate bolt head that does not rotate with the bolt and is removable. After several adaptations, the 1902 Short Magazine Lee-Enfield, or SMLE, was introduced to British and Commonwealth forces. Its variants and models saw active service for over 50 years, and it was considered one of the best bolt-action service rifles. The Mosin-Nagant bolt action, created in 1898, has a separate bolt head that rotates with the bolt body. More complicated than the other 2 types, but extremely rugged and durable. From bolt action, the next step was the self-loading rifle. There were several self-loading models appearing in industry circles from the turn of the century. Notably, Winchester produced several models from 1903 and 1905 through to 1907 and 1910 models. Remington were also in the game with their Model 8 self-loader and later versions. While the First World War in France had drawn to a stalemate, there arose a requirement to arm their pilots with a rifle capable of high rates of fire. The French Army purchased many Winchester 1907 and 1910 models. The need for a self-loader on the battlefield was also proven, and the French military set about developing a model of their own, and, as a stopgap, revived an earlier design by Etienne Meunier. It was chambered for a 7mm round and was rushed into production in several weapons plants as the Model 1916. The Fusil Automatique Modèle 1917 8mm self-loading rifle, which incorporated components from both earlier rifles and different manufacturing plants, was put into production in April 1917 and soon after issued to frontline troops. The US Army trialed several self-loading rifles of the time, including the 1911 Bang and Murphy Manning. John Garand, a talented weapon designer working for the Springfield Armory, worked on his own design for several years, producing numerous prototypes in various calibers. The Army had large stockpiles of .30 caliber ammunition and decided their new rifle should be chambered for this caliber. Several Garand-designed models were put to trial with the Army and Cavalry. Bugs ironed out, and a production model went into service. The M1 Garand officially replaced the bolt-action Springfield M193 of the US Army in 1936. Even after introduction, design changes were made in 1940. The gas-operated rotating bolt was fed with an 8-round clip as opposed to a separate box magazine. Once the last round of 8 was fired, the clip was ejected and the rifle's bolt remained open, ready to receive the next clip of ammunition. The method of loading was fast, simple and efficient. However, the one drawback was the familiar sound of the spent clip ejecting from the firearm with a ping, alerting the enemy that a reload was in progress. Whether this had any effect is debatable. During the war, Soviet designer Fedor Tokarev advanced his earlier designs for a self-loader and introduced the SVT-38. In use during the winter months, complaints about poor design surfaced, and it was reworked and dubbed the SVT-40 with several design improvements. It served out the war and was eventually replaced by the SKS and Kalashnikov rifles. The Russian-designed Samozaryadny Karabin Systemy Simonova, or SKS for short, was a semi-automatic carbine designed in 1945 to take the new ammunition caliber 7.62 by 39, beating out several other designs, including one by Mikhail Kalashnikov. China and East Germany adopted their own variants of the model. It was fed with a 10-round box magazine and was a short-stroke gas piston design with a tilting bolt. Kalashnikov had the last say, though. The SKS was quickly superseded by his AK-47 assault rifle. The SKS and its variants saw action on many fronts, including the Korean and Vietnam Wars. It exists today in a modernized civilian form with composite stock, high-capacity magazine and scope rails.